Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Derbyshire Dales series. The Dales contain some of the most beautiful British scenery. It's a magnificent area. Here's one of its 109 civil parishes. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales, and behind me there you can see a building which you may well recognise from a Guess Where I Am short that I put out a few weeks ago. In fact, it was last year. That there is the hole in the wall, and you can drive all the way through that, through this village. It's an interesting little feature, isn't it? It's not really a bridge, it is literally a house that's got a hole in its wall to allow cars to pass through it. And you'll find the hole in the wall in a place called Bradley. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Bradley, broad woodland clearing. We continue our trip through the Derbyshire Dales with another parish close to Ashbourne this week. Welcome to Bradley, a small agricultural village nestled within some shallow hills between the A517 and the A52. The parish is made up of two settlements which are practically conjoined, Bradley and Moorend. The most well-known landmark in these parts is a pair of tenements connected together by an archway that spans the road through Moorend. The locals know it as the hole in the wall, and it stands at the entrance to a medieval park. That park isn't well defined, but part of this walk around the place crosses it, so you'll get a feel for what it was like. Bradley has an array of features worth talking about. The church is perhaps one of the most peculiar in Derbyshire because it has no tower and an external bell. Bradley Hall, directly opposite, isn't actually a hall, and it's got a crazy backstory. Otherwise, the village has a school, a fishing pond, and a big business, Walkers of Ashbourne. At one point here, you can even get some well-worded advice from a tree. They do things differently in Derbyshire, that's for sure. Let's get the boots on and go exploring once again. Oh, and look out for chickens. Seriously, on this route, we have to walk right through their home. We start at a landmark you should all be semi-familiar with by now. If you watch literally everything I put out, you'll know all about the hole in the wall already. This is an archway at Moorend, a hamlet that's joined to Bradley village at its westernmost extreme. It spans the road between two cottages, a pair of brick tenements in fact, and was formerly an entrance gate to a park. It's a listed building and it dates from 1750 and 1751. It's narrow and quite low too, so don't be trying to drive a double-decker bus or anything through here, it might not end well. The park which it was an entrance to was medieval, and it lies in what was a much more extensive woodland. Although its boundaries are not precisely known, Bradley Parish contains 3 scattered and isolated old park farms. Moorend is otherwise a group of residential buildings and farms from varying periods, all on the edge of the road through the hamlet. There's also a parish notice board as well here, so let's get that job out of the way. With Bradley visited, the Derbyshire Dales is down to 96, still a ways to go. We're now onto Hadley Lane, which connects Moorend to Bradley. It's a narrow road and downhill practically all the way. No surprise then that it's not the kind of road that's well suited for HGVs. Mind you, I suppose tractors still have to use it occasionally. Let's follow it for a while. This has to be one of the quietest lanes I've had the pleasure of traversing for some time. At points you do feel like you're the only person out here. All you can hear are the birds in the trees and the occasional rumble of a distant tractor or a vehicle on the A517. The road soon becomes more like a farm track, very narrow with overhanging branches. We're still going downhill here too. If you look to your left, you can see an expanse of fields. These are all behind the church in Bradley. They're mostly private, but there are public rights of way across them. The end of the road brings us to Milldam Lane, and speaking of rights of way, there's one down here which handily takes us past our next landmark. This is a dam which was associated with Bradley Mill over the road. The parish boundary runs down the middle of Milldam Lane, meaning the mill itself is actually in Yeldersley. The dam has now been turned into a fishing lake. It's fed by Bradley Brook, which flows south off the surrounding hills. Just after the pond, there's a tree which gives us some sound advice we could all live by. A lot of this makes perfect sense when you think about it. Let's continue to Bradley. After making our way up Pinfold Lane, we are now in Bradley. The building ahead of us here is the old post office. Bradley is far too small now to sustain a modern one, or for that matter a general store. Mind you, it still has a post box which can be found at the beginning of Yew Tree Lane. This is Bradley's main street, where most of the village's modest population live. Farming is still very much a way of life out here, but now a lot of residents work elsewhere. Historically, the land around the village was used as dairy pasturage. Indeed, in 1912, most of the residents here were listed as cow keepers. Bradley also once had the Ashbourne Joint Board Smallpox Hospital within its boundaries. Of course, that now has disappeared and patient records were never kept. Next up, we have Bradley's primary school. This was founded in 1873, and when built, it could accommodate 90 children. At the last Ofsted inspection, Bradley School was rated good, a fact that's proudly displayed on a banner outside the building. Over the way is a big house set back from the road. That's the old rectory, which means, of course, the church isn't far away. Beyond those buildings, the landscape then becomes a bit more open, revealing this view. There's a discernible gap to the next landmark, Bradley Hall. This is a red brick building which was never actually intended to be a hall. Instead, it was supposed to be a stable block for a hall that was never built. It was meant to replace the old Bradley Hall, which was demolished in the late 18th century. It had been lived in by Sir Andrew Kniverton, who was bankrupted by the English Civil War. The stable block was eventually converted into a residence, and it's worth a sum of money in the region of £3 million. And so to the church. Dedicated to All Saints, this unusual building is 14th century, with an aisleless nave and chancel, but no tower. There was an 18th century bell turret, but that's now been removed. The original wooden bell tower was struck by lightning, but the bell is still attached to the rear wall. It contains several graves and monuments belonging to the members of the Kniverton, Byram and Meynell families who resided at Bradley Hall. In the churchyard is the shaft of a Norman cross. The top went missing thanks to Cromwell's soldiers, who beheaded it during the Civil War. Now luckily, this church is open, and I know that because seconds before I walked up the entrance path, the lady with the keys was coming to open it. So let's go in and have a little look, shall we? First thing of note, the organ. Look at that. There's a little mouse or maybe a rat here on the corner. He looks pretty happy, doesn't he? There's a window at the back where you can see out into the fields beyond. Now, when I'm done with the church, I'll be walking across those fields via a path that takes you back to the hole in the wall. if you're wondering how I'm getting back to the start. Here's the font. Round 1 in this one. To the left here, there's the War Memorial for World War I. 1914 to 19, for God, King and Country. In Domino Confido, it says up there. That's the Latin you can see under that little crest. And there's another memorial here for World War II. Tablet on the wall. It's actually for Robert Tomlinson, 4th of June 1943. I imagine that's when he died. Might be the only person actually who was from Bradley in World War II. Let's head up into the chancel. It's all one building, this, all nave and chancel. There's no sort of segregation between the two apart from the obvious step here. It's really just all one, as you can see. There's the altar. A couple more tablets behind the altar. I can't read them because they're too far away and the writing's too small, so I can't tell what they say. Let's have a look down the other side. There are some crests on the wall up here. One there, look, you see, beyond that light. Some lovely stained glass. I'll have a look at that window actually, because it's got a bit of writing at the bottom. The glory of God, late of Bradley Hall. Oh, George Moore Dixon, yeah. Died in 1901, age 75. That window is in memory of the Dixons then, George Dixon. Some tablets up here. Thomas Archer, that one. Esquire. What have we got here? This is in memory of William Tomlinson and Mary Louisa, his wife, who for many years lived at the pastures in this parish and died at Wirksworth and were buried at Idridge Hay. Ah, you might remember Idridge Hay from the Amber Valley series last year. Lovely little place, lovely church. I think we're about done with it. Not much more to see in here, to be honest. So we'll head out of the door, making sure we close it on the way. And yeah, we'll head across those fields and back to the hole in the wall. Behind the church is the Lady Pond. You can just see it here from the path that crosses the fields. It used to be a series of 3 old stew ponds which were interconnected and formed part of the medieval park, which the hole in the wall was the entrance to. When they were cleared and turned into the lake, some well-tooled stone was recovered. These fields were all part of that medieval park too. The former parkland is not the easiest thing to try and cross. It's a rolling landscape with various challenging undulations, and given the rain we've had recently, it was also quite boggy in places. Mind you, it wasn't the worst walk I've ever had to do, and the scenery more than made up for it. And I'm not joking here, the path runs back to the hole in the wall via this chicken enclosure. Now back in Moorend, our last job is to tackle Walkers of Ashbourne. Despite looking like a farm, the property this occupies is called Moorend Garage. Walkers are a logistics company specialising in the transport of freight by road. They also rent and lease trucks and other heavy vehicles. The company was founded by David Walker, who passed away last year at the age of 89. And that's going to do us for the parish of Bradley. After driving through the hole in the wall, I set off towards my next village. The muddy fields between Bradley and Moorend were a challenge here, but they were child's play compared to what I was about to encounter in the next one. All I'll say is my boots soon changed colour. It wasn't pleasant. See you later. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.